What's up, Instagram? Welcome back to the We Are Just Dating page. If you are new here, it's Tuesday, our favorite day of the week, and that's because every Tuesday we answer your anonymous questions in the link in our bio. So if you got a question, reach out to us. Let us know. We would love to answer it. We got a great question today. Pauline is going to kick it off. I didn't even introduce ourselves. It's okay. My name is Tim. This is my beautiful wife, Pauline, and we're excited to get into this question today. I got so excited, I went too fast. You feel? All right, let's go.
All right, cool. This week's question: what are some ways or tips for a Christian couple who are dating to abstain from sex?
I feel like we had a short question like that in a while. That was good. So, how can a couple abstain from sex? Essentially. To be honest, I feel like this topic comes down to boundaries. Like, to me, when I hear that, I just hear about boundaries, and that's the best way I can answer this question, because when you have successful boundaries, you're able to abstain from sex. Now, let's break down what boundaries is, because to some people, that's the B word. To some people, that's a word that they don't like, and boundaries is literally just something that you have in place to help you accomplish a goal. For example, you already know this, but in November, I'm not eating any sweets until Thanksgiving. Because your boy got a little thick. I'm trying to slim down. I'm trying to look nice. Because Thanksgiving, I'm going to have a good time. You understand what I'm saying? Sweet potato pudding. Where my people at? But that's a boundary I have. That's not something bad. That's just helping me reach my intended goal. And you need the same thing for your goal of abstaining of sex. You're going to need a boundary. So we'll talk a little bit more about what that practically looks like. What are some practical boundaries you can have in place? We can maybe even talk about what we did when we were dating. But boundaries is going to be the key, along, y'all know we love Jesus, with some spiritual principles, weight, whatever you want to call it. I tell guys that I coach all the time, you got to be careful, because one thing that happened with me, and trust me, abstaining from sex is hard. It's not easy. We're not going to cap on here. Like, it is not easy. But I tell dudes all the time, my love for Jesus and my desire to please him was stronger than my desire to have premarital sex. Now, that was strong to have sex, but my love for Jesus and my desire to please him was stronger. So what I want to say to you is, if you have that desire to please God, plus some practical boundaries, because sometimes you're going to have a bad day and loving God ain't enough when she's looking great. You understand? So we got to have some practical boundaries that can help us on those days when our love for God is not as strong as it needs to be. So that's my quick first answer. What you got?
Yeah, that's good. It reminds me of like the needing wisdom and understanding. You need both practical tips and a heart to please God. I think that's really good. And I would agree with that. I think, if your goal, the person who asked this question, their goal is to abstain from sex, until they get married, which is an awesome goal.
Yes.
But I think you really need to focus on the why and the purpose of that goal, because a lot of people don't, maybe they think it's a good idea until they have the opportunity to have sex. And then it's like, oh, well, do I really believe that? Did God really say that? It's kind of the whole Satan temptation thing again.
Yeah.
When he tempted Eve in the garden, did God really say you're going to die if you eat this fruit? So you are going to be tested and challenged. But if your goal is to abstain from sex, it's absolutely possible. And I think that even the fact that this is a question just shows you how much culture has kind of infiltrated our mindset, even within the church, even within Christian dating, because sex is not designed to be a part of dating at all. It's only supposed to be a part of marriage. And it's okay if, it was a part of your past, but we want to make sure it stays there. So I think that, proud of you for answering or asking this question to anybody else who has a similar goal to abstain from sex, but it is something you have to fight for your purity. It's not something that you say, if you just write it down in a journal, or if you just tell your friends, like, I'm going to abstain from sex, until I get married. Like, it's not as simple as just making a decision, but you're going to have to fight for it. You're going to have chances to do the opposite. The enemy, he wants to make sure you fail in that area, and so does your flesh, and so does culture. So that's why it goes back to, like, what are you feeding yourself? As sex become very normalized to you through the music and the movies that you're watching, that's going to make it very hard for you to accomplish your goal.
Yes, don't believe the lie that just because you love Jesus, you're not going to have a fight on your hands.
Right.
A fight. You're going to be getting up every day. What's up? What's up? I'm ready to win this war on purity.
Yeah.
So that's great. That's great. All right. So are we going into practical
Yeah,
tips?
let's do practical
We
tips.
moving in this video. Let's go.
Well,
All
this
right.
question was the very practical.
It was. All right. Let me check this out. Practical tips. I'll say this. One thing you want to have with your boundaries, and we'll talk about some specifically, but one thing you want to have is boundaries that are hard to be broken. What do I mean by that? You want to make sure you have a boundary that's going to be really difficult for you to break. Also, you're going to want to have boundaries that are as far away from what you don't want to do as possible.
Margin,
Meaning,
yeah.
yes, margin. Meaning, you don't want to have sex. So what that looked like for Pauline and I, because we didn't want to either before we got married, we said, look, we know ourselves. We know our past histories with sex, with other people. We don't want to bring that here. We're not going to be in the house alone together.
Right.
And some of y'all like, I'm grown. I go where I want. And that's cool. But if your goal is to abstain from sex, you're going to want to make that as hard as possible to break. So you want to make sure that you have boundaries that set yourself up for your worst day.
Right.
You want to set yourself up for your worst day. And for us, that was, look, we can't be in the house alone because I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and the reason for that is because if your goal is to abstain from, sex, and we'll get some more specifically like vaginal sex, you should also know that, well, we don't want to do oral sex either, because that's kind of one step away from vaginal sex. And then maybe we don't touch each other, under each other's clothes and rub in private parts and things like that. So it's like the further away you get, the safer you're going to be. So I think that's one thing to keep in mind as well. You cannot, if you try to just abstain from vaginal sex, but you're doing everything else, but you're so close to the edge, on a bad day, you're going to slip.
That's good. Yeah, something else we did was the first 6 months of our relationship, we actually were kissing. And we found that there was no way we were going to sustain kissing each other and not end up having sex. So we cut it out. So we dated and were engaged for 2.5 years. First 6 months, we didn't kiss. The next 2 years, we did not kiss each other. And as hard as that was, and as crazy as that may sound to you, I'm so glad looking back that we did, because, and we can talk about this in another topic, should dating couples kiss? There's different opinions on that. Right. But one thing that did for us was it allowed us to take a step back from our flesh, because when you're kissing each other and you first start dating, we were all up in each other's mouths. It was too much. And we were not going to sustain a godly, pure relationship on that track. When we stopped that, we slowed down. We were able to actually learn more about each other. We were able to actually learn how to communicate. We were actually learn how to understand each other's emotions. And we just got intimate on a deeper level that was more than physical. Yeah.
And that's my practical tip, I would say. If you're trying to avoid, physical intimacy while you're dating, I would focus on emotional intimacy. So instead of taking the mindset of like, don't look down, the next thing you fall, it's like focus, keep your head up on what you can focus on. And that's what you want to be building while you're dating, is emotional intimacy, having deep conversations, getting to know each other better, sharing more of yourself, your dreams, your hopes, your past, your purpose, all those different things with the person. And when you are, because physical intimacy is very much a distraction when you're dating, and you want to make sure that you're able to evaluate with a clear mind while you're dating, so you don't end up marrying somebody where you look back and you're like, I wish that I knew this about you when we were dating, but if you're too busy, worrying about the physical stuff, you don't have time to build the emotional intimacy. So I would, ask each other questions is great. Dating questions online, you can look like 100 questions to ask your boyfriend or girlfriend when you guys go on dates and when you're talking on the phone. I definitely encourage those. So you make sure that you're not, because a lot of times when you're idle and you're bored, that's when you end up, in some physical situations that you don't want to be in.
Also, you're going to want to reevaluate your boundaries often. Yeah. Just because you set something today doesn't mean 6 months from now you're not going to need to change that.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to, especially, we tell couples this all the time, the longer you're dating, probably the more strict your boundaries need to get, because you're getting closer. Your body is like,
you're more comfortable with each other.
Yes. So it's just, you want to make sure that you're constantly reevaluating. Hey, every month, maybe have a check-in with your partner. Be like, hey, is what we're doing working for you? Like, is this helping you get closer to God or get closer to my body? Right. Let's be honest. Like, let's talk about it. Have those honest conversations, and that will save you a lot of pain on the back end.
I also think we're keeping in mind the mindset that like this person is just like your boyfriend and girlfriend, and boyfriend and girlfriend is not acknowledged in the Bible or in the eyes of God. It's friends and it's husband and wife. So you really have no rights to that person's body. So you don't, physical intimacy really shouldn't be a part of your relationship if we're really looking at it from a godly perspective, because the Bible says to treat your neighbor or your brother, like any person of the opposite sex, as you would a brother or sister. So it's like, for those of you guys who are wondering, how far is too far? Well, how far is too far with your sister or with your brother? Like, that's pretty gross, but that's who that person is. And I know saying brother and sister in Christ is sometimes weird when you're dating, but when it comes to you have no ownership, you have no stock in that person's life, versus when that is your wife or your husband, you now have responsibility over them and you do get benefits. So you want to make sure that you don't treat that person and look at them like they're yours, because they're not.
Yeah, that was good. I think we helped you. If y'all have more questions or comments about it, put it in the comments below. We would love to hear with y'all, and maybe we can tackle this deeper on another question of the day.
Yes.
But this has been Question of the Day. We'll see you guys next week for the next video.
Bye.